from Los Angeles. Thank you. We're going to hear from Dean Logan and Monica Flores.
Good afternoon. I'm Dean Logan, Registrar Recorder County Clerk for Los Angeles County, and I'm joined today by Monica Flores, our Administrative Project Manager for the Voting Systems Assessment Project. First, we want to thank the Ash Center and the Kennedy School for the recognition and the opportunity to present our work and to congratulate all the other projects promoting innovation and engagement. It's truly an honor to be part of this program. In Los Angeles County and in local jurisdictions throughout the country, we are conducting elections using aging voting equipment and an outdated service delivery model that has become costly and overly dependent on a very limited and proprietary market. Our 5.2 million voters deserve a system built with a new perspective that looks beyond technology to engage citizens in the process of voting. More than at any time in our history, the integrity of elections and the public's confidence in voting are paramount in ensuring the continuity of our representative form of government. After more than a decade of regulatory gridlock and a dependency on a shrinking commercial market, we knew modernizing voting in the largest county in the country would be challenging. It was clear to us that given the size and diversity of Los Angeles County, there was a need for innovation and leadership. To meet that challenge head-on, we launched the Voting Systems Assessment Project. In an unprecedented commitment to user engagement, creative design, and collaboration, we cut through the layers of complexity and false starts that had previously paralyzed modernization in voting and made the experience of the voter our focal point.
Our vision is to ensure the new voting experience meets the needs of the county's diverse electorate, which includes serving voters who originated in over 180 countries, providing language support in more than 12 languages, and deploying services in an area that spans more than 4,000 square miles. To do so, we engage the county's voters through surveys, focus groups, interviews, and community discussions. We then brought voters together for hands-on user testing and prototyping, where we presented various concepts and designs and incorporated feedback to modify and refine the systems and legal framework needed to support the new voter experience. In total, we've engaged more than 3,800 voters. Voters like retired Postmaster Ernie, who after losing his vision had stopped voting but regained his confidence in helping us identify system features that would allow voters like him to vote privately and independently. And U.S. Army veteran Mike, who felt pride in giving input for a revolutionary system that would allow fellow disabled veterans to participate in the democratic process while overcoming his anxiety of being in a crowded public space. And first-generation American Sue, who votes in every election but worries about accessibility for an aging population and the complexities involved in casting a ballot. We heard countless stories that inspired us. And in the process, we learned the importance on focusing on the fine details that have the most impact on how voters feel about their experience. Through this human-centered, transparent process, we brought the needs and expectations of current and future Los Angeles County voters to the forefront. With the help of a dynamic and diverse advisory committee comprised of community experts and leaders, and a technical team of nationally recognized experts in information security, voting technology, and usability, the project has been able to stay true to a set of guiding principles that governed us from the beginning.
The results of the project include systems that leverage modern technology and an open source platform that provides for a publicly owned voting system. We created a design that is agile and adaptable and that meets the needs and values of usability and accessibility without compromising the importance of security and accountability. This work is both transformational and transferable. What we learned and created exceeded our expectations. We learned that usability is more than just compliance, and achieving access for those with disabilities and language needs results in a better experience for everyone. We learned that in serving a population of millions, we can still focus on the needs of individuals like Ernie, Mike, and Sue. And we successfully changed the regulatory environment to support such systems. We are now in the manufacturing and implementation stage with plans to introduce during the 2018 and 2020 election cycle a user-friendly ballot marking device with features to serve all voters, vote centers located throughout the county available to all voters over a 10-day voting period, an interactive sample ballot that offers an ability to personalize and customize your participation, an enhanced vote-by-mail program, and a modern auditable vote tally system, all components of a publicly owned, non-proprietary system infrastructure. We are on the threshold of offering a new voting experience that can easily be adapted to future changes in election laws, voter behavior, or advances in technology, one that can be shared and adapted to other jurisdictions across the country and that frees us from the constraints and limitations of the past. We're excited to move forward and to apply what we've learned to other public sector challenges and systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pete?
One of the questions I had about this project, which is really, I think, an amazing mixture of public engagement and expert design, is I wasn't sure, as we were looking to that question of transferability or replicability, whether you were proposing that the process by which you've arrived at this new system was the thing that was worthy of transfer, or the actual voting machine, which you, as you say, you're already in the manufacturing stage, whether that was the transferring piece. I know from others in California, and certainly the many counties that are, as you have here in your application, are watching with bated breath what comes out of LA County. They're not so much interested in trying to replicate the 8-year process that got you to this place, but they are very interested in the technology. So just a question about process versus product.
Yeah, I think from the beginning, I think the answer to your question is both. We fundamentally, when we set out to do this, we knew it was it's an unusual challenge, and we knew the approach we were taking was going to be unique. Along the way, at the beginning, we wanted to be sure whatever we did in the voting space was transferable to other jurisdictions, but also in a way that was adaptable. We knew that Los Angeles County, because we're larger than most states, we're very unusual as a voting jurisdiction, and that most states or most counties may not have the capacity to support a system themselves the way we have that ability. So we still wanted them to be able to leverage the product that we come up with in their own environment. So that was the case with regard to the voting process. Really wanted to be able to have publicly owned, open source based voting systems available in the market. And there is, as you say, great interest in that amongst other jurisdictions. But we also recognize that the process we were going through is something that should be transferable to other big complex problems like the problem we face. So not just related to voting, but our hope is to put this in a toolkit as something that can be replicated in other jurisdictions when they're facing a challenge like we did, where we were waiting for a market solution that simply wasn't coming, and we faced a kind of a pivotal point where we could either wait for our current system to fail and not have anything to replace it with, or we could step forward and create a system that would replace it ourselves.
And I would just add that we continuously meet with other jurisdictions that are interested in the process. So we're constantly sharing the information that we've learned, best practices, and we also publish all our information on our project website where various other jurisdictions follow.
Just a quick follow-up. If you could just say very briefly why there wasn't a private sector solution forthcoming.
2 reasons. One, in California, as you well know, we faced regulatory gridlock. We had counties surrounding us that had used the federal money from the Help America Vote Act to replace their voting systems, only to have those replacement voting systems decertified by the Secretary of State because of security concerns. Those counties now have the systems they purchased with that money in public storage facilities because they can't use them and nobody wants to buy them. We didn't want to be in that situation. And the other reality is simply that Los Angeles County is just a beast of a jurisdiction. We are so large and so diverse, the number of languages we need to serve, the geography we need to serve, the products that are available on the commercial market, which have shrunk because of the regulatory environment, don't have the scalability to Los Angeles County, and they consider us extremely high risk as a result of that.
Thanks.
Yes, David?
As I read the description, at one point it was describing how voters can customize this a little bit. I've forgotten the details, but I had the reaction of, oh, I wonder if really elderly voters might be confused. I understand you're going to test this on a large scale in 2018, but have you tested it on smaller scales with actual voters?
We have. At every step of the design, we've done user testing with actual voters or potential voters. We've done it with emerging voters, trying to see what the next generation is going to look like. We've also really focused our user testing on extreme populations, believing that if we can get it right for those with the most significant needs, then it'll be right for everyone else. So as an example of that, early on, when we had prototypes that were just made of foam board and just conceptual, we took those to the Cerebral Palsy Center in Los Angeles County and talked to voters there who, very engaged in politics and interested in voting, never had been able to vote independently or privately in their lives. So very engaging population. They guided us to the accessibility features. We then came back 6 months later with a functional prototype. And probably one of the most fundamentally transformational moments for me in the project was we watched as each of those voters cast a ballot independently on the prototype, including a voter who was severely disabled in a wheelchair and operated the prototype using a dowel attached to his foot without any assistance of anyone else. And to watch their reaction to the hope that they would now get to vote independently and privately was pretty amazing.
That is a wonderful story. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess the question for me is the risks associated with when you roll this out to scale in the countywide election. And it hasn't been tested in that level yet.
Right.
And help us think about how we should think about those risks.
Well, I think first of all, we recognize those risks. We know that this was designed based on feedback from voters, but we also know that once you put it out there, that doesn't mean they're expecting it, and it doesn't mean that they know what to do with it. So we believe, and we've been very upfront with our authorizing environment, that we're going to have to do this on an incremental basis. We plan to first introduce it in early voting when traditional polling places are still open and available on the Tuesday date of the election, and then transition into full implementation. We also believe we're going to have to make a sizable investment in voter education and outreach, and we don't underestimate that. We know that this is a big move. The voters in Los Angeles County, I was sharing this last night, from the voter experience, the systems have been modified throughout the years, but the voter experience today in Los Angeles County is the same as it was in 1968. That's what you experience when you walk into a polling place. It's a big leap to move that population to something new.
So let's say everybody thinks, wow, you've done such a great job. What happens when every other jurisdiction in the United States wants to copy you?
Well, we would consider that a success.
How difficult would it be for you to absorb? You're not Diebold, so you're not selling stuff. So how would you absorb all the interest in what you're doing?
Right, and we've been very clear about that from the beginning, that we have a big job to do in LA County. We do not want to be a voting systems vendor.
Yeah.
What we want to do is make the 8 years of research, design, and development that most jurisdictions don't have the ability or capacity to do. We want to make that available. We've done that since day one in the project. All of our research, all of the design specs are on our website. They're available. And we want to model that in a way, again, that in a jurisdiction that doesn't have an internal IT support division, that they could competitively bid that and bring in a company to run it, but they would build it based on the design specs that we've developed, rather than design specs that were developed by a for-profit proprietary company.
Would somebody be able to, would Baltimore, for instance, be able to just look on your website, or would they come and visit you?
We would encourage them to do both, and at some point, once we have software and hardware, there are probably license agreements that will need to be made available to that to allow them to go out to competitive bid for that.
So to Pete's question, you do use private bidders for some of your aspects of what you've accomplished, and some of it is not.
Yes, but we use them in a different way than the traditional model. In other words, we will competitively bid to build our hardware, but we'll give them the blueprints for that hardware. And so if we need to go out in 2 years and buy more hardware, we can do a completely new bid because we own the blueprints. We aren't entering into this long-term marriage with a particular vendor. We can continue to leverage advances in technology, new entrants into the market, and in fact, we've already seen
So you
new
control the
markets.
system rather
Correct.
than being controlled by them.
Right.
That would be the big difference.
That's the key to the public ownership piece of it, right.
And has any other jurisdiction tried that aspect?
There is a jurisdiction in Texas, Travis County, Texas, that has engaged in a similar design model. They approached this first as a technology project, more so than a user-centered project, but very similar values and principles, commitment to open source, and they're at a similar point in their project. I don't know of any others that have worked on the development side. I know that San Francisco is interested in an open source voting platform, and we have, again, many jurisdictions that are kind of waiting to see where this goes before they make their next purchase agreement.
Great. Well, this is very exciting, and congratulations on all that you've accomplished.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Well done.